The first thing Noah ever saw was the man holding his father's gun. Not the weapon itself. Noah had been blind since birth, but the shape of it, the shine of it, the way it pointed like a finger that wanted to accuse someone. His small hands trembled on the banister as he stared down the grand staircase, eyes wide, unblinking, as if he couldn't believe what his own face was doing. The maid stood between Noah and the man with the gun, breathing hard, her cleaning gloves still on, her hair messy like she'd been dragged out of a storm. And when the man shouted, "He can't see. He's lying," Noah turned his head slowly toward the voice and whispered, "I can see you." So why was the only person protecting him the one they were trying to arrest? 2 days earlier, the Vale Mansion looked like a place where nothing bad could ever happen. The gates were tall. The hedges were trimmed so neatly they looked painted. Cameras watched every corner, and the driveway curved like it was designed to slow down trouble before it arrived. Inside, everything smelled like polished wood and expensive flowers. But Ethan Vale didn't feel safe. He was a billionaire in the clean, magazine kind of way. Charity galas, foundation dinners, photos with smiling children in hospitals. He built a tech empire and then spent years trying to prove he still had a heart. Yet none of that mattered when he walked down the hallway to Noah's room, because Noah's room was where Ethan's money ended. It was where his power stopped. Noah was 7 years old, quiet, gentle. He moved carefully, fingertips brushing walls, counting steps like numbers could protect him from pain. Ethan had paid for the best doctors in 3 countries. He'd flown specialists and on private jets. He donated entire wings to hospitals just to get his calls answered faster. And still, every morning, Noah woke up in darkness. That was Ethan's wound. Not the public kind. Not the kind people could clap for. The private kind that made a man stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m. and wonder what he'd done wrong to deserve this one thing he couldn't fix. The day Grace Harper arrived, Ethan was already under pressure. A board meeting waited. A reporter had called asking uncomfortable questions about a lawsuit from a former employee, and his foundation's biggest fundraiser was 3 days away, which meant his house would soon fill with strangers smiling too hard. Ethan's wife, Vivian, glided through the mansion like she owned air itself. She was elegant, sharp, always composed. She spoke softly, but everyone listened, because even her silence felt like a warning. Vivian was not Noah's mother. Noah's mother had died. That was what everyone said. It was a story told in polite tones, with sad eyes, then quickly changed into something easier to swallow. Ethan hated the story because it ended too neatly, and he hated the way Vivian told it because her voice never broke. That morning, Vivian handed Ethan a tablet and said, "We need a new housekeeper. The old staff is sloppy. The fundraiser is in 72 hours. Ethan didn't look up. "Hire whoever you want." Vivian's smile stayed, but her eyes tightened. "I already did. She arrives today." Ethan finally looked at the screen. A simple profile photo. A woman in plain clothes. Brown hair tied back. No makeup. No smile big enough for a camera. Just steady eyes. Name, Grace Harper. Experience, private homes, medical cleaning, childcare. Ethan frowned. Medical cleaning? Vivian's tone stayed light. She worked in clinics. That means she knows how to disinfect properly. We can't have germs around Noah. That sounded reasonable. But Ethan felt something shift in his chest anyway. Because Noah's health, Noah's blindness, Noah's vulnerability, those things were always used as reasons. Always used to justify control. And Ethan had gotten used to letting people control things, because it was easier than fighting every day. He should have fought more. Grace arrived just after noon. The security team met her at the gate, checked her bag, scanned her ID, searched her pockets. The guards were used to delivery drivers and event planners, not a woman with rubber shoes and a quiet voice. When they brought her into the foyer, Vivian stood at the top of the staircase, like a queen watching someone enter her palace. Grace stopped at the bottom, hands folded neatly, head slightly bowed. "Mrs. Vale," she said. Vivian's smile was smooth. "Welcome. You're punctual." Grace nodded once. "It's respectful." Ethan watched from the hallway, half hidden behind a tall plant like a man who didn't know where he belonged in his own house. Grace's eyes moved across the space. The marble floors, the portraits, the cameras in the corners. She noticed everything. Then, for the smallest moment, her gaze paused on the family portrait hanging above the fireplace. Ethan, Vivian, and Noah. Noah sitting in front, his blind eyes slightly unfocused, his small hand resting on Ethan's knee. Grace didn't stare. She didn't react. But her throat moved like she swallowed something sharp. Ethan saw it, and something in him whispered, "That's not normal." Vivian clapped her hands lightly. "Your duties are simple. Keep the house spotless. Stay out of private areas. Do not speak to guests unless spoken to. And most importantly, do not disturb Noah." Grace's voice stayed calm. "I understand." Vivian leaned forward a little, like a teacher emphasizing a rule. "Noah is fragile. He's easily influenced. He's blind, Miss Harper. He cannot tell what is real and what is imagined." Ethan felt irritation rise. Noah was not fragile. He was a child surviving something no one else could understand. But Ethan didn't argue. Grace's eyes flicked toward Ethan then, just for a second, like she wanted to check whether he agreed with Vivian's words. Ethan's mouth opened slightly. Grace looked away again. She didn't challenge Vivian. She didn't show anger. But she said something that landed like a pebble in a still pond. "I won't influence him," Grace said quietly. "I'll protect him." Vivian's smile didn't move, but her voice cooled. "That is not your place." Grace lowered her head. "Yes, ma'am." The guards took Grace to the staff quarters in the back wing. Ethan told himself it was nothing. New staff always looked around. Everyone noticed the wealth. Everyone had that first moment of shock. But Grace hadn't looked shocked. She'd looked familiar. That evening, Noah sat on the rug in his room, building shapes with smooth wooden blocks. Ethan sat nearby, pretending to work on emails while watching his son's hands. Noah didn't need sight to build. He needed pattern. He needed texture. He needed calm. A knock came at the door. "Come in," Ethan said. Grace stepped inside with a tray. "I brought dinner," she said. Ethan blinked. "We have staff for that." Grace's voice stayed neutral. "I was told the kitchen is busy with preparations. I wanted to help." Noah's head tilted slightly toward the sound of her voice, like a flower turning toward light. "Who's that?" Noah asked. Grace froze for half a breath, then stepped forward carefully. "It's Grace," she said softly. "I work in the house." Noah's fingers paused on the blocks. Then he smiled. Not a polite smile. A real one, like he recognized a song from long ago. Ethan sat up straighter. Noah asked, "Do you smell like soap?" Grace let out the smallest laugh, surprised. "I do. Sorry. I like it," Noah said. Vivian had always smelled like perfume and cold air. But this woman smelled like soap, like warmth, like someone who scrubbed life clean with their own hands. Ethan watched Noah's face, trying to understand what he was seeing. Grace set the tray down on the table and moved to leave. Ethan stopped her. "You don't need to bring food here. It's not your job." Grace looked at him. "As if you don't want strangers coming in and out while he eats." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Grace didn't hesitate. The fewer people who enter his room, the fewer chances for mistakes. Ethan stared at her. That was a strange thing to say on day one. Noah asked, "Can you stay until I finish?" Grace's eyes softened. She glanced at Ethan like she was asking permission. Ethan nodded slowly. A few minutes. Grace sat on the edge of the chair by the door, hands folded. Noah ate quietly, but the whole time, his face stayed turned toward Grace's voice, as if her presence created a map in his mind. When Noah finished, he reached out his hand blindly, searching the air. Grace stood, but before Ethan could react, she moved in. She placed her finger gently in Noah's palm. Noah's fingers wrapped around it instantly, and he whispered, "You're real." Ethan felt cold slide down his spine. That sentence wasn't normal. By the time Ethan left Noah's room that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had entered his house that didn't belong. Or maybe something had returned. The next morning, Ethan found Grace in the hallway outside Noah's room. She was wiping down the door handle, the light switch, the wall near the frame. Ethan stopped. "Why are you cleaning here?" Grace didn't look up. "Because people touch it." Ethan frowned. "The staff cleans that." Grace finally looked at him, eyes steady. "Does anyone log who touches it?" Ethan's mouth tightened. "No." Grace nodded once, like she already knew. "Then it stays dirty." Ethan felt his irritation and his curiosity wrestle inside his chest. "You're acting like—" he started. "Like what? Like you expect someone to harm him? Like you know something I don't?" Grace finished for him. "Like someone is watching." Ethan stared at her. Grace kept wiping, calm as if she'd just commented on weather. Ethan lowered his voice. "Why would someone watch my son?" Grace paused, cloth still in her hand. Then she said very softly, "Because he's worth more than money." And she walked away down the hallway like she hadn't just dropped a threat into the air. That was clue number one. Not the kind you could explain away. Not the kind you could pretend didn't exist. That afternoon, Vivian hosted a planning meeting in the dining hall. Florists, caterers, security supervisors, a charity coordinator. Ethan sat at the head of the table, listening without hearing. His mind stayed on Grace's words, because Ethan's whole life was built around people wanting something. Money, access, power. But Noah was a child. Noah had no public role, no corporate title, no shareholding votes. And yet, there was one thing Noah had: the future, Ethan's legacy, his inheritance. And if Ethan died tomorrow, Noah would become the center of every hungry person's attention. Vivian glanced at Ethan. "Ethan, are you listening?" He forced a smile. "Yes." Vivian's eyes narrowed slightly like she didn't believe him. Later, Ethan walked through the back corridor toward the kitchen and heard voices. Grace's voice, and another voice, Mrs. Dalton, the nanny who'd been with Noah since he was a baby. Mrs. Dalton sounded annoyed. "You're new. Don't go making trouble." Grace's tone stayed polite. "I'm not making trouble. I'm asking questions." "You're asking the wrong questions," Mrs. Dalton snapped. "Noah is blind. He needs routine. He needs peace. No surprises." Grace's voice lowered. "He needs the truth." Ethan stopped in the hallway, heart thumping. Mrs. Dalton hissed, "Don't say that word in this house." Grace didn't raise her voice. "Who told you that?" There was silence. Then Mrs. Dalton said, "I'm warning you. People disappear when they dig." Grace answered calmly, "So do children, when nobody protects them." Ethan stepped back before they could see him. His stomach twisted, because Mrs. Dalton had been loyal, hadn't she? And Grace was new, wasn't she? Yet Grace spoke like someone who had already fought this battle once. That night, Noah woke up screaming. Ethan ran down the hallway barefoot, heart in his throat. He burst into Noah's room and found his son sitting up, shaking. Mrs. Dalton stood by the bed, trying to calm him. Noah's hands clawed at his own face like he was trying to wipe away something invisible. "I can't breathe," Noah cried. "It's coming back." Ethan grabbed him gently. "What's coming back? What's wrong?" Noah's voice was panicked. "The light. The burning light." Ethan froze. "The light." Ethan whispered. Noah had never described light before. He'd been blind since birth. He didn't know what light was supposed to feel like. Mrs. Dalton's face went pale. Vivian rushed in behind Ethan, silk robe tied around her like armor. "What is happening?" Vivian snapped. Noah screamed again. "It hurts. My eyes." Vivian looked at Mrs. Dalton. "His drops. Now." Mrs. Dalton rushed to the bedside drawer. Ethan's eyes followed her hands. A small bottle came out. Vivian grabbed it and twisted the cap, then leaned over Noah. Ethan caught her wrist. "What are you giving him?" Vivian yanked free. "His medication. The doctor prescribed it. Don't start a panic." Noah's sobbing turned to hiccuping breaths as Vivian put the drops in. Within a minute, Noah's breathing slowed. His body relaxed. Ethan stared at the bottle in Vivian's hand. He read the label. It wasn't a brand label. No pharmacy logo. Just typed text. Larkin Compound, Night. Ethan looked up sharply. Dr. Larkin made this himself? Vivian's voice stayed smooth. Specialists do special things. Ethan felt something sour rise in his throat. He had met Dr. Larkin many times. A famous ophthalmologist, recommended by every wealthy parent with a sick child. He'd always spoken in calm, confident tones, always with just enough sympathy to sound human. But Ethan suddenly remembered something. The way Dr. Larkin always kept the bottle himself. The way the staff never ordered refills. The way Vivian always handled it. As Noah drifted back to sleep, Grace appeared in the doorway. Her hair was tied back, but her eyes looked awake, alert, like she'd been ready for this moment. Vivian's gaze snapped to her. "Why are you here?" Grace kept her tone respectful. "I heard him. I came." Vivian stepped closer. "This is not your concern. Go back to your room." Grace didn't move. She looked at Noah, then at Ethan, then at the bottle in Vivian's hand. Her eyes tightened, just slightly. Ethan saw it. Grace said quietly, "Those drops hurt him." Vivian laughed once, sharp and cold. "You are Maid. You don't know anything about medicine." Grace's voice barely changed. "I know pain." Vivian's smile vanished. "Get out." Grace looked at Ethan. Not pleading, not begging, just waiting, like she needed to know which side he was on. Ethan's throat felt tight. He wanted to tell her to leave, to avoid conflict, to keep peace. But Noah had just screamed about light. Noah had just cried about his eyes burning. And Vivian had not looked surprised. Vivian had looked prepared. Ethan said, "Grace, go rest." Grace's face didn't change, but something dimmed in her eyes. She nodded once and stepped away. Vivian leaned close to Ethan and whispered, "Don't let staff poison your mind. We have enough problems without paranoia." Ethan watched Noah sleep, and for the first time in years, he wondered if the real danger in his house wasn't outside the gates. It was inside the bedroom drawer. That was clue number 2, something that raised the stakes. Because if the drops were wrong, then the blindness might not be fate. It might be choice. The next day, Ethan asked Vivian to schedule an appointment with Dr. Larkin. Vivian didn't hesitate. "Of course. He can come by tomorrow morning." Too fast. Like she was already expecting the request. Ethan said, "I want a second opinion." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "From who?" Ethan forced himself to hold her gaze. "Anyone not connected to our foundation. Anyone not handpicked by you." Vivian's smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Ethan, you're tired. You're stressed. This fundraiser is draining you." Ethan's voice hardened. "I'm his father." Vivian's face cooled. "And I'm the one keeping this house from collapsing." She walked away like the conversation was over. Ethan stood alone in the hallway, feeling like he'd just touched a wire and found electricity. That afternoon, Grace was cleaning the nursery storage room at the far end of the west wing. It was a room most people forgot existed. Noah hadn't used it since he was a baby. The door stayed locked, and the key hung in a hidden hook in the linen closet. Ethan found Grace there because he'd been looking for answers, and his feet kept taking him toward places no one wanted him to go. He stopped in the doorway. The nursery storage room smelled like dust and old fabric. Boxes were stacked along the walls. A crib sat folded in the corner, covered in a sheet like a ghost. Grace had pulled out a trunk and set it in the center of the floor. Ethan's stomach tightened. That trunk had belonged to Noah's mother. The woman everyone claimed was gone. Ethan swallowed. "Why are you in here?" Grace turned slowly. Her face stayed calm, but her hands were tense like she'd been caught holding something fragile. "I was told to clean the west wing," she said. Ethan's voice came out rough. "This room isn't used." Grace nodded. "That's why it needs cleaning. Dust can trigger allergies." Ethan stared at the trunk. Grace followed his eyes. She hesitated, then said something that felt like another impossible clue. "You never opened it again," she said softly. Ethan froze. "What did you say?" Grace seemed to realize she'd stepped too far. She cleared her throat. I mean, it looks untouched. Ethan's heart pounded. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Like she knew that trunk had been closed by someone and never opened again. Like she knew the story behind it. Ethan stepped forward. Grace, how do you know anything about this room? Grace's eyes flickered, like she was calculating. Then she looked down at the trunk's lock. I don't, she said, but her voice betrayed her. It was too quick, too careful. Ethan's phone buzzed before he could press her more. A message from security. Mrs. Vale requests your presence in the study. Urgent. Ethan's jaw clenched. Vivian didn't request. Vivian commanded. He looked back at Grace. Lock this room. Do not touch that trunk. Grace nodded, but her eyes stayed on it like it was calling her name. Ethan walked away with his mind burning. That night, Noah asked Ethan a question that made him stop breathing for a second. Daddy, Noah said, lying in bed, fingers tracing the edge of his blanket. Why does the house feel angry? Ethan sat beside him. The house doesn't feel anything, buddy. Noah frowned. Yes, it does. Some rooms are warm. Some rooms are cold. Some rooms are mean. Ethan swallowed. What do you mean? Noah whispered. The West Wing feels like someone is hiding. Ethan's blood ran cold. Noah couldn't see, but he could feel. And if Noah felt someone hiding, then the truth was already leaking through the cracks. After Noah fell asleep, Ethan walked downstairs and saw Grace in the kitchen. She was washing her hands at the sink. She looked up when Ethan entered, and her eyes sharpened, like she'd been waiting. Ethan lowered his voice. You were in the nursery storage room. Grace nodded once. Ethan said, You spoke like you knew it. Grace didn't answer immediately. She dried her hand slowly. Then she said, Mr. Vale, have you ever asked to see Noah's birth records? Ethan felt like the floor shifted. My son's birth records, he repeated. Grace's voice stayed even, but something trembled underneath. Have you ever held the papers that prove what they told you? Ethan's throat went dry. He remembered the day Noah was born, blurred, rushed, painful. He remembered being told the mother didn't make it. He remembered Vivian arriving like a solution wrapped in silk, helping him survive grief. He remembered not asking questions, because questions hurt. Ethan said, Why are you asking me this? Grace looked away, and for a second, her calm mask slipped. Pain flashed across her face like lightning. Then she regained control. I'm asking, she said, because someone in your house is lying. Ethan's voice hardened. That's a serious accusation. Grace met his eyes. So is what they did to your son. Ethan's hands clenched. That was clue number 3, the one that forced irreversible action. Because once someone said it out loud, once someone dared to connect Noah's blindness to something done, Ethan couldn't unhear it. He couldn't go back to sleep pretending this was just fate. He couldn't sit in another meeting smiling while his son screamed at night. Ethan took a breath. What do you want from me? Grace's answer was immediate. Let me clean out the nursery trunk, she said. Ethan stared. No. Grace's voice stayed calm. There are things inside you need to see. Ethan shook his head, anger rising. That trunk is private. Grace stepped closer. Your son is private too. And someone has been touching him. Someone has been controlling what he feels, what he knows, what he fears. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're making claims without proof. Grace's voice softened. Then let me find proof. Ethan's mind raced. Vivian had power. Dr. Larkin had authority. The staff had loyalty built from years of fear. And Grace was new. But Noah smiled when she spoke. Noah had called her real. Ethan didn't understand why. He only knew that something about Grace felt like truth pressing against a locked door. Ethan said, Tomorrow morning, when Vivian is at her meeting, we'll open it. Just you and me. Grace nodded like she'd already planned it that way. Good, she said. And Mr. Vale. Ethan paused. Grace's voice dropped to a whisper. Don't drink anything Vivian hands you tonight. Ethan felt his stomach drop. What? He breathed. Grace didn't explain. She just walked out of the kitchen, leaving Ethan standing there, listening to his own heartbeat. The next morning, Vivian left early for a charity planning meeting downtown. She kissed Ethan on the cheek and said, "Try not to drown in suspicion while I'm gone." It sounded like a joke, but her eyes weren't joking. As soon as her car rolled out past the gates, Ethan walked briskly to the West Wing. Grace was already there, key in hand. She unlocked the nursery storage room and stepped inside like she was returning to a place she'd been trying to reach for years. Ethan closed the door behind him. The air felt thick. The trunk sat in the center of the floor, clean now, dust wiped away, the lock gleaming. Ethan's hand shook as he knelt. He hadn't touched it since the funeral, since the day he'd buried the woman he loved and tried to bury his questions with her. Grace crouched beside him. She didn't rush him, but she was watching the lock like it might bite. Ethan whispered, "If this is nothing." Grace answered softly, "It won't be nothing." Ethan clicked the lock open. The lid creaked. The smell that rose wasn't just old fabric. It was lavender, a scent that hit Ethan like a memory. He blinked hard. Inside were folded baby clothes, tiny socks, a soft blanket, and a small photo album. Ethan's fingers trembled as he lifted the album. He opened it. Photos of Noah as a newborn. Photos of Ethan holding him. Photos of a woman with tired eyes and a gentle smile. Noah's mother. Ethan swallowed. Grace leaned forward. Her breath caught. Ethan noticed. "Why does this matter to you?" he demanded, voice shaking. Grace's lips parted, but she didn't answer. Ethan flipped through the album. At the back, tucked in an envelope, was a bundle of papers. Ethan pulled them out. Hospital forms, a birth certificate copy, and a discharge report. Ethan's eyes scanned, then stopped, because the mother's name on the paper wasn't the name Ethan expected. It wasn't the name engraved on the funeral plaque. It wasn't the name Vivian used when she spoke her polished condolences. It was another name entirely, and beneath it, in smaller text, was a note. Patient requested privacy. Records sealed by family legal representative. Ethan's blood ran cold. He looked at Grace slowly. Grace's face went pale. Ethan whispered, "Who are you?" Grace swallowed. Her eyes glistened, but she fought it. Then Ethan saw something else in the trunk. A small, sealed plastic bag. Inside it, a medicine bottle. The same kind Noah took at night. Same typed label. Larkin Compound Night. But this bottle was older. The date handwritten on the bottom was from years ago. Grace's hands moved before Ethan could stop her. She grabbed the bag like it was burning her. Ethan snapped, "Where did you find that?" Grace's voice trembled for the first time, hidden under the lining. Ethan stared. Why would it be in here? Grace's eyes lifted to his. "Because this trunk isn't just storage," she whispered. "It's a grave for the truth." Ethan's heart hammered. He grabbed the bottle from the bag and held it up to the light. It looked like a custom compound. Not regulated. Not tracked. Not normal. Grace's voice turned urgent. "Mr. Vale, if those drops have been used since he was a baby." Ethan snapped, "Stop." Because his mind was already racing toward a cliff. If Noah's blindness had been caused, if Noah's suffering had been maintained, then someone hadn't just lied. Someone had committed something unforgivable. Ethan shoved the papers into his jacket. He grabbed the bottle. Then his phone buzzed. A message from the security system. "Alert. Nursery storage room door opened." Ethan froze. "That's internal," he whispered. "Only Vivian gets those alerts." Grace's face tightened. Then she knows. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Vivian was coming back. Ethan clenched the bottle. "We need to hide this." Grace shook her head. "No, we need to move." Ethan grabbed Grace's arm and pulled her out into the hallway. They shut the door, locked it. Ethan's mind raced. Where could he go with evidence when the house itself was watched? Grace whispered, "Your office. The safe." Ethan stared. "How do you know about my safe?" Grace flinched. Another slip. Another clue tightening into something personal. But there was no time. They hurried through the corridor to Ethan's study. Ethan opened the safe behind the painting. Grace didn't look surprised. Ethan shoved the documents and bottle inside. Then he shut it, locked it, and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Grace whispered, "Now you need to get Noah away from Vivian." Ethan stared. "Away? Why?" Grace's voice sharpened. "Because if she knows you opened that trunk, she will act." Ethan's heart pounded. Grace stepped closer. "Mr. Vale, you think you live in a mansion, but you don't. You live in a cage with velvet walls." Ethan felt his fear turn into anger. He had built this life. He had trusted. He had let Vivian become the gatekeeper of his grief. Now his son might be paying for it. Ethan turned and stormed toward Noah's room. Grace followed. They found Noah sitting on the rug, tapping blocks together softly, humming a tune under his breath. Grace froze. Ethan looked at her. "What is it?" Grace whispered, "That song." Ethan frowned. "What song?" Noah hummed again. It was simple. A lullaby. Ethan stared. He didn't know that tune. But Grace's face looked like she'd been punched. Noah smiled and said, "Grace, you're here." Ethan blinked. "How did you know?" Noah shrugged. "I can tell when she breathes." Grace knelt slowly in front of him. "Where did you learn that song?" Noah tilted his head. "I don't know. It just comes." Grace's eyes filled, and she pressed her lips together hard to stop herself from breaking. Ethan felt his chest ache. Micro-clues were stacking now. The song, the trunk, the records, the drops. Ethan crouched beside Noah. "Buddy, we're going for a drive." Noah's face tightened. "Why?" Ethan forced a smile. "Just to get ice cream." Noah didn't look convinced, but he trusted Ethan. Grace stood. "Take him to the clinic." Ethan frowned. "Clinic?" Grace nodded. "Not Dr. Larkin. Someone else. Someone who will test those drops." Ethan's mind raced. There was one person he trusted outside Vivian's circle. Dr. Nadia Reyes, a pediatric neurologist who had once challenged Dr. Larkin's approach, then quietly disappeared from the case after Vivian handled it. Ethan had always wondered why. Now he understood. He grabbed Noah's small jacket. Grace helped Noah put his shoes on. Noah's fingers brushed Grace's hand and lingered. Then Noah whispered, "Don't go away." Grace's throat moved. "I won't," she promised. Ethan rushed Noah out the side exit to avoid the main foyer cameras. Grace stayed behind, pretending to return to cleaning. But as Ethan drove through the gates, he glanced back. Grace stood by the kitchen window, watching them leave. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked like someone sending a child into a storm with only a prayer. Ethan reached Dr. Reyes's private clinic across town within 30 minutes. Dr. Reyes looked surprised to see him. "Mr. Vale," she said, "you haven't come here in years." Ethan didn't waste time. "I need you to test something." He pulled out the bottle Noah used at night. Dr. Reyes's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" she asked. Ethan kept his voice low. "From my house. From my son's drawer. And another one hidden in a trunk from 7 years ago." Dr. Reyes's face tightened. She took the bottle carefully, like it was dangerous. "I can send it to an independent lab," she said slowly. "But this isn't standard medication. There's no code. No manufacturer." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Can it hurt him?" Dr. Reyes hesitated. Then she said, "Anything can hurt a child if it's not what it claims to be." Ethan's hand shook. "I need to know what it is." Dr. Reyes nodded. "I'll do what I can." Noah sat quietly in a chair, hands on his knees. Dr. Reyes crouched in front of him. "Hi, Noah," she said gently. "Do you remember me?" Noah smiled politely. "Your voice is soft." Dr. Reyes's eyes warmed. "That's a compliment, I think." Noah nodded. Dr. Reyes glanced at Ethan. "Any new symptoms?" Ethan's mind flashed to the night screams. He said something. Ethan admitted. He talked about light. Burning light. Dr. Reyes stiffened. She looked back at Noah. "Noah, can you tell me what you meant?" Noah's brow furrowed. "Sometimes, when I'm scared, I see a line. Like a crack. Like someone opened a door far away." Ethan's stomach dropped. Dr. Reyes's face went still. That wasn't imagination. That was a description of partial visual input, tiny, inconsistent, but real. Dr. Reyes stood slowly. "Mr. Vale," she said quietly, "I need you to answer one question honestly." Ethan's voice came out hoarse. "Yes," Dr. Reyes asked. "Has anyone in your home ever been alone with his medication?" Ethan's mind immediately pictured Vivian, her steady hand, her unshocked face, his silence. Ethan whispered, "Yes." Dr. Reyes nodded slowly, eyes hard now. "Then you need to protect your son immediately." Ethan felt cold wash over him. He looked down at Noah. Noah was humming again. That same lullaby. Ethan asked, "Noah, who taught you that song?" Noah shrugged. "Nobody. It just makes me feel safe." Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't know what to do with the fear, so he turned it into a decision. He said, "Dr. Reyes, I want a full evaluation. Today. And I want copies of everything. Records. Notes. Anything." Dr. Reyes nodded. "I can start. But if you're asking for what I think you're asking, you're stepping into a fight." Ethan's eyes hardened. Then I should have stepped sooner. Ethan drove back to the mansion with Noah in the back seat, clutching a small toy Dr. Reyes had given him. Ethan's phone buzzed repeatedly. "Vivian, Vivian, Vivian." He didn't answer. When he pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal. That was what scared him. Normal was a mask. Inside, staff moved quietly. The air smelled like flowers. Vivian stood in the foyer, arms folded. "Where did you go?" she asked softly. Ethan kept his voice calm. "Ice cream." Vivian's eyes flicked to Noah. "Without telling me." Ethan stepped closer. "Don't do that." Vivian's brows lifted. "Don't do what?" Ethan lowered his voice. "Don't act like you're his mother." Vivian's expression didn't crack, but something sharpened. "I'm the one raising him. I'm the one who stays when you hide in boardrooms." Ethan's jaw clenched. "You're the one who controls his drops." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" Ethan held her gaze. "I'm implying I'm done being quiet." Vivian's lips curved slightly. "Ethan, you're spiraling." Ethan stepped past her. "Where's Grace?" Vivian blinked slowly. "Why?" Ethan's voice hardened. "Where is she?" Vivian turned her head slightly. "Grace, come here." Grace appeared from the hallway, hands wet like she'd been cleaning. Vivian looked at her like she was dirt on polished marble. "Mr. Vale seems confused," Vivian said sweetly. "He thinks you are involved in Noah's medical care." Grace kept her face neutral. "I'm not." Vivian's smile stayed. "Then you won't mind if you stop hovering." Grace's eyes flicked to Noah. Noah turned his head toward her voice. "Grace." Vivian's smile twitched. Ethan saw it. Vivian didn't like the bond forming. She didn't like anyone having access to Noah except her. That meant Grace was a threat. Ethan said, "Grace will stay assigned to Noah's wing." Vivian's eyes hardened. "Absolutely not." Ethan's voice rose slightly. "I said she will." Silence spread across the foyer. Even the staff stopped moving. Vivian stared at Ethan like she didn't recognize him. Then she smiled again, slow and dangerous. "As you wish," she said softly. "For now." That night, Ethan locked Noah's medication drawer. He took the key. Vivian noticed. She didn't argue. She just watched. And later, when the house was quiet, Ethan heard a soft tap at his study door. Grace stepped in, eyes alert. "They'll move tonight," she whispered. Ethan's heart pounded. "Who?" Grace's voice stayed low. "Vivian. Dr. Larkin. Whoever helps her." Ethan stared. "How do you know?" Grace swallowed. "Because I've seen it before." Ethan's mind flashed to the birth records. The wrong name. The sealed files. Ethan whispered, "Grace, who are you?" Grace's lips parted. Her eyes glistened. Then she whispered, "Not here. Not now. There are ears in the walls." Ethan stared. Grace turned slightly and pointed toward the corner of the study ceiling. Ethan followed her gesture. A small black dot. A camera lens. Ethan's blood turned to ice. He walked slowly to the bookshelf, pulled out a book, and checked behind it. Another lens. He checked the smoke detector. A tiny blinking light. His stomach churned. Vivian had been watching him in his own study. Grace whispered, "Your house isn't your house." Ethan's fists clenched. He leaned close to Grace. "What do we do?" Grace said, "We create a safe moment. A place they can't control." Ethan swallowed. "Where?" Grace glanced toward the garage. "Your old workshop. The one you built before Vivian moved in." Ethan's eyes widened. "Nobody goes there." Grace nodded. "That's why." Ethan moved fast. He slipped down the hallway, checked on Noah, then walked Grace through the back corridor to the detached workshop near the hedge line. The building smelled like oil and wood. Old tools hung on the wall. Ethan hadn't been there in years. He locked the door behind them. Then he said, voice shaking, "Tell me the truth." Grace took a breath. Her hands trembled. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. A charm. A tiny silver star on a worn string. Ethan frowned. "What is that?" Grace's voice broke. "It was on his wrist when he was born." Ethan's heart stopped. He stared at the charm like it was impossible. Grace's eyes filled. She whispered, "I put it there." Ethan's throat tightened. "Why would you?" Grace swallowed hard, and her voice came out like a confession. "Because I'm his mother." Ethan froze. The air felt too heavy to breathe. Ethan's mind rejected it at first, like a body rejecting poison. "No," he whispered. Grace shook her head slowly. Tears slid down her face, silent, controlled, like she'd been holding them for 7 years. "Yes," she whispered. "I didn't die. I didn't disappear. They took me out of your life." Ethan stumbled back a step. His hands went to his head. "That's impossible," he breathed. "I buried you." Grace flinched. "You buried a story they gave you." Ethan's heart hammered. He remembered the funeral, the closed casket, the quick paperwork, Vivian's arm around him, Vivian's voice saying, "It's better this way." Ethan stared at Grace, his mind spinning. Grace wiped her face. "I was a nurse at the private clinic you funded," she said quietly. "You came there after your first wife, passed. You were grieving. You were lonely. And I was young enough to believe kindness meant safety." Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered her now, not as a maid, as a woman in scrubs with tired eyes and a gentle voice. He remembered her laugh. He remembered her holding his coffee when his hand shook. He remembered the night he made a mistake, not out of cruelty, but out of pain. Grace whispered, "When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't ask you for money. I didn't demand a ring. I just wanted you to know you had a son." Ethan's eyes filled. "Why didn't you tell me?" Grace's voice turned bitter. "I tried." Ethan's stomach dropped. Grace continued, voice trembling. "Vivian found out before you did. She was your legal advisor then. She was close to your foundation. She called me into her office and told me I would ruin you if I spoke." Ethan's face went pale. Grace nodded slowly. "She offered me money. I refused. She offered me silence. I refused. Then she offered me fear." Ethan whispered, "What did she do?" Grace's eyes hardened. "She told me if I didn't sign papers saying I was unstable, they would take my baby and make sure you never knew he lived." Ethan felt nausea rise. Grace's voice cracked. "I refused again." Ethan's hands trembled. "Then how did Noah end up here?" Grace took a shaky breath. "I went into labor early," she whispered. "At the clinic. Vivian brought in Dr. Larkin that night. He wasn't there to help. He was there to control." Ethan's eyes widened. Grace's jaw tightened, anger and pain mixing. When Noah was born, he cried. Loud, strong, perfect. Ethan's throat tightened. Grace whispered. Then Dr. Larkin gave him something. Ethan's world tilted. Grace continued, voice shaking. He said it was to calm him. But I saw the syringe. I saw the label. I tried to fight, and they restrained me. Ethan's breath came fast. Why would they? Grace cut in, eyes blazing. Because a healthy baby meant I had power. A healthy baby meant you could choose me, or at least choose the truth. But a blind baby meant control. Ethan staggered back, stunned. Grace's voice softened. They told you I died. They told me my baby died. But I heard him cry from the hallway when they moved him. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Grace swallowed. I begged. I screamed. Nobody listened. Vivian had already written the story. Ethan felt his heart break and harden at the same time. So you came back as a maid, Ethan whispered. To get him. Grace nodded. To protect him. And to expose them. Ethan's voice trembled. Why now? Grace looked down. Because I found out the fundraiser was happening. I knew the house would be crowded. I knew Vivian would be distracted. And I knew Dr. Larkin would come again. Ethan's face went cold. The drops. Grace nodded. They've been keeping the damage permanent. Not curing him. Maintaining it. Ethan's eyes filled with rage. Grace whispered. I came because Noah deserved a chance. Even if he never knows who I am. Even if you hate me. Even if it kills me. Ethan stared at her, shaking. Disbelief. Then anger. Then guilt. Because he had been there, and he had been fooled. Because his son had suffered, and Ethan had called it fate. Ethan whispered. All these years. Grace nodded, tears returning. All these years. And this is where everything shifted. Because now it wasn't just about a blind child and a worried father. It was about the truth they buried for years. Ethan's hands trembled as he paced the workshop. He looked at the walls like they might give him answers. Then he stopped and faced Grace. If you're telling the truth, he said, voice low, then I'm going to destroy them. Grace's eyes sharpened. Then you need proof. Not just memory. Ethan nodded slowly. We already have the bottle. The sealed records. Grace shook her head. That's not enough. Vivian will say it's fake. Dr. Larkin will say it's necessary. They will drown you in paperwork until you doubt your own name. Ethan swallowed. Then what do we need? Grace's voice turned urgent. We need a test. A real one. Independent. And we need evidence that connects Vivian to Dr. Larkin. Emails. Payments. Anything. Ethan's mind raced. He had resources. But Vivian controlled many of them. Grace looked at him. And we need to protect Noah today. Not next week. Ethan nodded, jaw tight. We start now. They left the workshop quietly, returning to the mansion as if nothing happened. Inside, Vivian sat in the living room with a tablet, speaking on the phone softly. Ethan walked past her without greeting. Vivian's eyes followed him. That night, Vivian made her move. Ethan knew because the house felt different. Too quiet. Too controlled. At midnight, Ethan heard footsteps outside his door. He didn't sleep. He waited. The door handle turned slowly. Ethan had locked it. The handle stopped. Then a soft click. A lockpick. Ethan's blood went cold. He stood, silent, and moved to the other side of the room. The door opened a crack. A shadow slipped in. Ethan's heart hammered. The shadow moved straight toward the safe behind the painting. They knew. Vivian knew. Ethan stepped forward and flipped on the light. The intruder froze. It was not Vivian. It was one of the security supervisors, Mr. Hargrove, a tall man with a stiff posture and eyes that never smiled. He held a small tool in his hand and tried to look innocent. Ethan's voice was sharp. What are you doing? Hargrove's face didn't change. Mrs. Vale asked me to check the lock. She said you've been stressed. She was concerned you might misplace important things. Ethan laughed once, bitter. In my safe. In my bedroom. At midnight. Hargrove's eyes narrowed slightly. Mr. Vale, don't make this bigger than it is. Ethan stepped closer. Get out. Hargrove's voice lowered. You don't want to start a war in your own house. Ethan's jaw clenched. I think I already live in one. Hargrove stared at him for a long moment. Then he slowly placed the tool down on the desk like a message. I'll tell Mrs. Vale you refused, he said calmly. Ethan watched him leave. Then Ethan locked the door again, hands shaking. Vivian wasn't just watching. She was sending people into his room. Ethan went straight to Noah's room. Grace was already there, sitting quietly in the chair by the door, like she'd sensed the move. Ethan whispered, "They tried to break into my safe." Grace's eyes hardened. "Then we moved the evidence." Ethan swallowed. "Where?" Grace leaned close. "Out of the house." Ethan's mind raced. He remembered something. A safety deposit box downtown under a foundation account Vivian couldn't access. He whispered, "I know a place." Grace nodded. "Do it before morning." Ethan called Dr. Reyes from his phone in the hallway, voice low, urgent. "Do you have security?" he asked. Dr. Reyes replied, I do." "Why?" Ethan said, "I need you to help me protect my son, and I need you to keep records safe." Dr. Reyes paused. "Mr. Vale, what's happening?" Ethan swallowed. "Someone has been lying to me for 7 years." Dr. Reyes's voice turned serious. "Bring him in tomorrow. Early. I'll arrange an independent ophthalmology consult, and I'll start paperwork for an official report." Ethan's chest tightened. "Thank you." When he hung up, Grace was watching him. "Tomorrow," Ethan whispered. Grace nodded. Then she said quietly, "We need a code word." Ethan blinked. "A code word?" Grace nodded. "If Noah is ever scared, if someone tries to separate him, if he needs to tell us something without Vivian understanding." Ethan swallowed. He looked into Noah's room. Noah slept peacefully, unaware of storms. Ethan whispered, "What should it be?" Grace thought for a second, then looked at the small silver star charm in her palm. She whispered, "Star." Ethan nodded slowly. "Star." Grace leaned closer. "If Noah says star, it means he's not safe. It means we move." Ethan nodded, heart pounding. The next morning, Dr. Larkin arrived at the mansion with a polished smile and a black medical bag. Vivian greeted him warmly, touching his arm like old friends. Ethan watched from the staircase, anger burning behind his eyes. Dr. Larkin looked up and smiled. "Mr. Vale, it's been too long." Ethan's voice was cold. "We need to talk." Dr. Larkin's eyes flicked to Vivian. "Of course. About Noah." Ethan nodded. "Yes. In my study." Vivian stepped forward. "Ethan, Dr. Larkin needs a calm space to examine Noah. Don't overwhelm him with interrogation." Ethan stared at her. "I'm his father." Vivian smiled. "And I'm trying to help." Ethan turned and walked to the study without waiting. Dr. Larkin followed, still calm, still polished. Inside, Ethan shut the door. They said, "I want to know exactly what's in Noah's drops." Dr. Larkin blinked slowly, as if surprised by the bluntness. "It's a compound designed to reduce inflammation and ease discomfort." Ethan's jaw clenched. "What's in it?" Dr. Larkin smiled gently. "Mr. Vale, you wouldn't understand the chemical composition." Ethan stepped closer. "Try me." Dr. Larkin's smile thinned. "Why this sudden suspicion?" Ethan stared. "Because Noah screamed last night about light." For the first time, Dr. Larkin's eyes flickered. Not fear, but calculation. He recovered quickly. "Children imagine all kinds of things in the night." Ethan's voice turned sharp. "Don't lie to me." Dr. Larkin's expression cooled. "I'm a doctor. I don't lie." Ethan pulled out his phone and played a recording he'd made the night Noah screamed, his son's voice crying about burning light. Dr. Larkin listened. His face stayed calm, but Ethan saw his fingers tighten on the medical bag handle. When the recording ended, Dr. Larkin exhaled slowly. "That's discomfort," he said, "not vision." Ethan leaned in. "Then why is he describing something he's never experienced?" Dr. Larkin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because someone is putting ideas in his head." Ethan felt fury surge. "You mean Grace?" Ethan said. Dr. Larkin's mouth tightened. "A maid with a history in clinics. She likely thinks she knows better than specialists." Ethan's voice dropped. "What do you know about her history?" Dr. Larkin paused. "Too long." Then he said, "Mrs. Vale mentioned her resume." Ethan's heart pounded. Vivian and Dr. Larkin were aligned. Ethan whispered, "If you've been hurting my son." Dr. Larkin's face hardened. "You're tired, Mr. Vale," he said. Grief makes people desperate. You want a miracle, so you invent villains. Ethan stared at him. Then Ethan opened the study door and called out, Grace. Grace appeared in the hallway quickly, like she'd been listening. Ethan said, Bring Noah. Vivian's voice snapped from down the hall. Ethan, what are you doing? Ethan ignored her. Grace guided Noah into the study. Noah walked carefully, hand on Grace's wrist, trusting her as his compass. Dr. Larkin crouched, smile returning. Hello, Noah, he said warmly. How are your eyes today? Noah's face tightened. He leaned closer to Grace's side. Ethan's stomach dropped. Noah didn't like Dr. Larkin. Noah's voice was small. I don't like your smell. Dr. Larkin's smile froze. My smell? Noah nodded. You smell like metal and cold. Vivian stepped into the doorway, face tight. Noah, that's rude. Noah flinched. Grace's hand tightened gently around Noah's wrist. Noah whispered, Star. Ethan's heart slammed. The code word. Noah had said it, meaning he wasn't safe, meaning something was happening. Vivian's eyes narrowed. What did he say? Ethan moved instantly. He stepped between Vivian and Noah. Enough, Ethan said sharply. Noah is coming with me. Vivian's voice turned sharp. Ethan, you are overreacting. Ethan's eyes burned. No, I'm waking up. Vivian took a step forward. Ethan, think about what you're doing. The fundraiser, your board, your reputation. Ethan snapped. My son is not your reputation. Dr. Larkin stood slowly, voice calm. Mr. Vale, you're agitated. Let's not frighten the child. Ethan glared. I think the child is frightened of you. Vivian's face tightened. Security. Ethan's blood ran cold. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Hargrove appeared with 2 guards. Vivian pointed. Mr. Vale is unstable. He's trying to remove Noah from his care. Stop him. Ethan's mind raced. She was rewriting the story in real time, just like she had 7 years ago. Ethan took Noah's hand. Buddy, we're going now. Noah clung to Ethan, trembling. Grace stepped forward. Mrs. Vale, you can't. Vivian snapped. You stay out of this, Maid. Grace's eyes hardened. He's not your child. Vivian's gaze snapped to her, sharp as a blade. What did you say? Grace froze. She'd almost revealed too much. Vivian stepped closer, voice deadly calm. Who are you, really? Ethan grabbed Grace's arm. Grace, don't. But Vivian didn't need Grace to speak. Vivian already suspected, and suspicion was enough for her to strike. Vivian turned to Hargrove. Remove her. Now. Hargrove reached for Grace. Grace didn't fight. She looked at Noah. Noah's voice broke. Grace. Grace whispered. Remember, Noah. Star. Then she let them pull her away. Ethan's blood roared. No. Ethan shouted, stepping forward. Dr. Larkin blocked him smoothly, like he'd done this before. Mr. Vale, Dr. Larkin said quietly. Calm down. Ethan shoved past him, rage exploding. Hargrove grabbed Ethan's shoulder. Ethan spun and punched him. The guard stumbled back, shocked. Vivian's eyes widened. Ethan, she screamed. You're proving my point. Noah cried out. Daddy. Ethan's mind snapped into focus. This was the trap. They wanted Ethan to look unstable. They wanted him to lose control, because then Vivian could take Noah fully. Ethan forced himself to stop. He lifted his hand slowly. His voice came out tight, controlled. Let my son go with me. Now. Vivian's smile returned, cruel. No. Ethan's chest tightened. Then a new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone stepped back. It was Dr. Reyes. She stood in the doorway with 2 uniformed officers and a woman in a blazer holding a clipboard. Vivian froze. Ethan stared, stunned. Dr. Reyes's voice was firm. Mr. Vale contacted me. I'm here with an independent child welfare advocate and law enforcement, based on immediate medical concern. Vivian's face tightened. This is absurd. You have no authority here. Dr. Reyes held up a document. I have a signed request from Noah's legal guardian, Mr. Vale, for an emergency protective evaluation. Vivian's eyes snapped to Ethan. You did what? Ethan's voice was steady. I protected my son. Vivian's smile disappeared. The child welfare advocate stepped forward. Mrs. Vale, step aside so we can speak to the child. Vivian's jaw clenched. Noah is blind. He can't be interviewed properly. Dr. Reyes's eyes hardened. Then you won't mind if we examine him immediately. Vivian's gaze darted to Dr. Larkin. Dr. Larkin's calm mask slipped for half a second. Then he smiled. Of course. I support all evaluations. Dr. Reyes looked at him coldly. Not by you. Dr. Larkin's smile tightened. Ethan's heart pounded. This was the counterattack, and Vivian hadn't expected it. But Ethan knew she wouldn't stop. Not with her control threatened. As Dr. Reyes guided Noah toward the door, Vivian's voice turned sharp. If you walk out of this house, Vivian warned Ethan, you will regret it. Ethan met her gaze. I already regret 7 years. The officers watched Vivian closely. Vivian forced a smile. Fine. Take him. You'll bring him back when this nonsense ends. Ethan didn't answer. He only looked down the hallway where Grace had been dragged. His chest burned. He couldn't leave her. But if he stayed, Noah would be trapped again. Ethan made a decision. He whispered to Dr. Reyes, get Noah to your clinic. Keep him safe. I'll handle the rest. Dr. Reyes nodded once, understanding. Noah clung to Ethan's shirt. Daddy Grace. Ethan kissed Noah's forehead. I'm coming. I promise. Noah whispered, Star. Ethan swallowed hard. Star, he whispered back. Noah left with Dr. Reyes. Ethan turned back into the mansion, eyes burning. Vivian's smile returned. Brave. Stupid, but brave. Ethan's voice was low. Where did you take Grace? Vivian tilted her head. Who? Ethan stepped closer. Don't play games. Vivian's eyes hardened. That woman is a problem, and I remove problems. Ethan's fists clenched. Vivian leaned closer, voice like ice. You should thank me. I kept your life clean. I kept your reputation safe. I kept your son manageable. Ethan's breath shook. Manageable, he whispered. Vivian's smile turned cruel. A blind heir is an obedient heir. Ethan's blood turned to fire. He lunged forward, grabbing Vivian's wrist. Vivian didn't scream. She smiled, because she knew cameras were watching. Ethan released her instantly, forcing himself to breathe. He couldn't give her the image she wanted. Vivian's voice softened, fake concern. Ethan, you need help. Ethan stared at her and whispered, No, you do. He walked away toward the security office. Hargrove stood at the doorway, rubbing his jaw from the punch. Ethan's voice was cold. Where is she? Hargrove's eyes narrowed. She's being held for questioning. She interfered with medical care. Ethan stepped closer. If you touch her. Hargrove smiled slightly. Mr. Vale, you don't give orders anymore. Ethan stared at him. Then Ethan remembered something. Vivian controlled the house, but Ethan controlled the company. And in Ethan's company systems were logs, emails, payment approvals, security contract renewals. Ethan turned and walked out. He went to the workshop again, his safe place. He opened his laptop. He logged into the foundation accounts, and he started digging. At first, he found nothing. Vivian was careful, too careful. But then Ethan checked one place Vivian wouldn't expect him to look. Old archived invoices. Small payments. Not from the foundation. From a private account under a shell company. The name meant nothing at first. Northwood Clinical Services. Ethan's fingers moved fast. He traced it. He followed the bank transfers. And there it was. A monthly payment. From Northwood Clinical Services to Dr. Larkin. Labeled Consultation Retainer. For 7 years. Ethan's hands shook. This wasn't charity. This was maintenance. Ethan printed everything. Saved copies. Then he accessed security logs. He searched for who had entered Noah's room at night. He expected staff. He found something worse. Vivian's keycard. Repeated entries after midnight. Always within minutes of the drops being given. Ethan's stomach churned. Then he searched for Harper. Grace's last name. He found her employment verification, but it wasn't real. It was a constructed resume. A cover. Ethan's heart pounded. Grace had come in undercover. Not as a liar, as a mother forced to hide. Then Ethan found the final piece. A sealed file in the Foundation Legal Archive. A medical incident report from 7 years ago. Filed by Dr. Reyes. Ethan opened it with trembling hands. It described an infant presenting with normal reflexes, then sudden loss of ocular response after an unscheduled injection by visiting specialist Dr. Larkin. The report said Dr. Reyes had requested an investigation, but the investigation had been closed within 24 hours by the Foundation's legal counsel. Signed, Vivian Vale. Ethan's breath left his body. That was the proof. Not a rumor, not a feeling. A document, a timeline, a signature. Ethan stared at it until his eyes burned. Then he stood. He wasn't going to beg anymore. He was going to end it. Ethan drove to Dr. Reyes's clinic. Noah sat in a small exam room, calm but anxious. Dr. Reyes stepped out with a folder. Her face was serious. "Mr. Vale," she said quietly, "we did an independent scan." Ethan's heart pounded. "And," Dr. Reyes hesitated. "Noah's optic nerve showed damage, but there's also suppression." Ethan frowned. "Suppression?" Dr. Reyes nodded. "A chemical suppression. Something has been keeping his eyes from responding fully. If we remove the suppressor and treat inflammation carefully, there's a chance." Ethan's throat tightened. A chance he could see. Dr. Reyes nodded slowly. "A small one, but real." Ethan's eyes filled. Noah's face turned toward Ethan's voice. "Daddy." Ethan knelt, hands trembling. "Yeah, buddy." Noah whispered, "Where's Grace?" Ethan's chest tightened. He couldn't lie, so he told the truth in a way a child could hold. "She's in trouble," Ethan said, "but I'm going to bring her back." Noah's small hands reached out. Ethan held them. Noah whispered, "She's real." Ethan swallowed hard. "I know." Dr. Reyes spoke softly. "We need to stop his night drops immediately, and we need a safe place for him to stay." Ethan nodded. "He's staying with me, away from the mansion." Dr. Reyes nodded. "Good." Ethan pulled out the printed documents. Dr. Reyes's eyes widened as she scanned them. "This is enough," she whispered. "This is devastating." Ethan's voice was low, steady. "How do we get Grace out?" Dr. Reyes took a breath. "We go legal. Now. And we go public if we have to." Ethan nodded. "Then we start." Within hours, Ethan's lawyer, one Vivian had never approved, filed an emergency protective order. Police went to the mansion with documents and authority. Ethan drove separately, heart pounding. He knew Vivian would try to twist it again. He knew she would smear Grace. He knew she would fight like a cornered animal. When Ethan arrived, the mansion gates were open. Police cars sat in the driveway. Vivian stood on the steps in a tailored suit, hair perfect, face calm. She looked like she belonged in a courtroom. Hargrove stood behind her, jaw tight. Dr. Larkin was there too, hands in his pockets, face composed. Ethan walked up the steps with his lawyer and Dr. Reyes beside him. Vivian smiled. "Ethan," making a scene. Ethan's voice was flat. "Where is she?" Vivian's smile stayed. "You mean your little maid? The one who manipulated you? The one who tried to kidnap your child?" Ethan didn't blink. He held up the printed report with Vivian's signature. Vivian's smile twitched for the first time. Ethan's voice sharpened. "You sealed an investigation into Noah's injury. You paid Dr. Larkin for 7 years. You entered Noah's room at night. You controlled his drops." Vivian's eyes flashed. Dr. Larkin's jaw tightened. Vivian laughed lightly, trying to regain control. "Ethan, you're emotional. You're exhausted. This is ridiculous." Ethan stepped closer. "Is it ridiculous that Noah screamed about light? Is it ridiculous that an independent scan found chemical suppression? Is it ridiculous that you signed this?" Vivian's smile faltered. The officers stepped forward. "Mrs. Vale," one said, "we need you to come with us for questioning." Vivian's voice turned sharp. "On what grounds?" The officer held up the paperwork. Medical abuse allegations. Obstruction. Possible conspiracy. Vivian's eyes blazed. She looked at Ethan, and her calm mask finally cracked. "You would destroy your own life for a woman who lied to you," she hissed. Ethan's voice was low. "She didn't lie. You did." Vivian's gaze flicked to Dr. Larkin. Dr. Larkin stepped forward, voice calm. "This is a misunderstanding. The treatment was experimental and approved by the guardians." Ethan snapped. "Approved by who?" "By Vivian, the person who benefited." Dr. Reyes stepped forward, voice steady. "You administered unlogged compounds to an infant. That is not treatment. That is control." Dr. Larkin's face hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about." Dr. Reyes met his eyes. "I filed a report 7 years ago. It disappeared because Vivian buried it." Vivian's mouth opened, but no smooth words came out. The officers moved again. Vivian stepped back sharply. "Ethan, stop this. Please." The word please sounded wrong on her tongue. Ethan stared at her. He felt a strange sadness, because he remembered a time Vivian had seemed like rescue. Now he saw she had been a cage. Ethan said, "Bring Grace out." Hargrove hesitated. An officer glared. Now, Hargrove turned and walked inside. A minute later, Grace emerged. Her wrists were red, like she'd been restrained. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. When she saw Ethan, she didn't cry. She just looked tired, like someone who had carried a secret too long. Vivian's voice turned sharp. "She is a criminal." Grace spoke quietly, finally letting the truth stand in the open. "I'm his mother," she said. The driveway went silent. Vivian stared, stunned. Ethan's lawyer looked shocked. Even the officers paused. Grace's voice trembled slightly, but she didn't break. "I gave birth to Noah," she said. "They took him. They told Ethan I died. They told me my baby died. And they kept him blind so he would never be strong enough to take back what was his." Vivian's face twisted. "Lies." Grace looked at Ethan. Ethan nodded slowly. Then Ethan turned to the officers. "I want a DNA test. Official. Today." Vivian's breath caught. Dr. Larkin's face went pale. Because a DNA test didn't care about stories. It didn't care about money. It only cared about blood. Vivian tried to laugh. "Fine. Waste your time." But her voice shook. That afternoon, they did the test. It didn't take long for the results to come back. Ethan sat in Dr. Reyes's clinic, Noah asleep on a couch under a blanket. Grace sat across from Ethan, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. Dr. Reyes entered with an envelope. Her expression was gentle and heavy at the same time. Ethan's heart pounded as he took it. He opened it. His eyes scanned, then blurred, because the words were clear. Probability of maternity, 99.99%. Grace was Noah's mother. Ethan's chest cracked open. He looked up at Grace. Grace's eyes filled, and she finally let herself cry. Silent tears sliding down her cheeks like a river released from a dam. Ethan stood slowly. His hands trembled. Grace flinched like she expected anger. But Ethan didn't shout. He didn't accuse. He walked around the table and knelt in front of her. His voice broke. "I'm sorry." Grace shook her head, crying harder. "I didn't want your money. I didn't want your name. I just wanted my son safe." Ethan's eyes filled, and I let them take him. Grace whispered, "You didn't know." Ethan swallowed. "I should have." In the days that followed, Vivian's world collapsed fast. The documents Ethan gathered went to investigators. The payments became evidence. The security logs became proof. Dr. Larkin's clinic was raided. His private compounds were seized. Hargrove was arrested for unlawful detainment and tampering with evidence. Vivian tried to fight, tried to twist, tried to paint Ethan as unstable and Grace as an opportunist. But the timeline didn't lie. The report didn't lie. The DNA didn't lie. And when Dr. Reyes presented medical findings to authorities, the story Vivian had built for 7 years shattered like glass. Noah began treatment immediately. It wasn't a miracle movie moment. It was slow, careful, painful sometimes. But one night, a week after the drops were stopped, Noah woke up quietly. Ethan was in the guest room at Dr. Reyes' safe residence, sleeping in a chair, exhausted. Grace sat on the floor beside Noah's bed, humming the lullaby Noah always hummed. Noah whispered, "Grace." Grace leaned close. "I'm here." Noah's voice trembled. "The crack is bigger." Grace's throat tightened. "What do you see?" Noah swallowed. "I see the soft blur. Like a cloud." Grace's tears fell silently. Ethan woke, heart racing. "Noah." Noah turned his face toward Ethan. His eyes didn't focus perfectly. Not yet. But they moved toward the sound. And for the first time, Noah didn't just listen. He searched. Noah whispered, stunned, "Daddy, you're there." Ethan's breath caught. He moved closer, voice shaking. "I'm here, buddy." Noah's face tightened like he was fighting to hold on to the new sensation. He lifted his hand and reached toward Ethan's face. His fingers brushed Ethan's cheek. Noah whispered, "Warm." Ethan choked on a sob. Grace covered her mouth, shaking. Noah turned his head slowly toward Grace's voice. His eyes fluttered. His gaze drifted. Then, like a sunrise struggling through fog, his eyes landed near her. Not sharp, not clear, but enough. Noah whispered, "Soap." Grace laughed through tears. "Yes, soap." Noah's brows furrowed. "You're real." Grace nodded, voice breaking. "I'm real." Noah whispered, "Are you my mom?" The question hit like lightning. Ethan's breath stopped. Grace froze. This wasn't how she'd planned to tell him. She planned to protect him quietly, to stay in the shadows if she had to. But Noah had always felt truth before he could see it. Grace leaned closer, trembling. "I am," she whispered, "if you want me to be." Noah's face softened. He reached out again. This time, his fingers found Grace's cheek. He smiled, and in that small smile was something bigger than revenge, bigger than money, bigger than the house that had tried to cage them. Noah whispered, "Stay." Grace pressed her forehead to his hand. "Always." Ethan watched them, tears falling freely now. He felt the weight of guilt, but also the strange relief of truth. Not a perfect ending, an earned beginning. Vivian's trial dragged on for months. The public loved it. The headlines were loud. People argued. Some called Ethan a fool. Some called Grace a hero. Some tried to turn Noah into a symbol. Ethan refused to let them. He moved them to a quieter home. Not a mansion. A place with sunlight and simple rooms, and a garden Noah could walk through without counting every step. Noah's vision improved slowly. Some days were better than others. Some days the world stayed foggy. But Noah kept trying, and every small improvement felt like the impossible proving itself real. Ethan rebuilt his life too. He stepped away from the foundation temporarily, letting an independent committee take control. He fired anyone connected to Vivian's network. He stopped living like his wealth made him untouchable, because now he knew the truth. Money didn't stop monsters. It sometimes hired them. One evening, months later, Noah sat on the porch with a cup of warm cocoa. Grace sat beside him, her shoulder brushing his gently. Ethan stood by the railing, watching them both. Noah blinked slowly, eyes focusing more than they used to. He looked toward Ethan, squinting. Then he smiled. "Daddy," Noah said, "I can see your shape." Ethan's throat tightened. "Yeah." Noah nodded proudly. "You're tall, and you look tired." Ethan laughed softly. "That sounds about right." Noah turned toward Grace. "And Mom," he said, testing the word like a treasure, "your hair is brown." Grace laughed. "It is." Noah's smile widened. "And you're smiling." Grace wiped her eyes. "I am." Ethan stepped closer and sat on the porch steps, letting the quiet wrap around them. Not perfect, not painless, but real. "And if you're still here listening, I want to ask you something. If you found out the truth about someone you trusted, something that changed everything, would you fight? Even if it meant burning down the life you built? Tell me what you would do. And if you want more stories where the impossible becomes real in the most unexpected way, you're welcome to stay around.